Hello, it's Christian Younger, and I wanted to welcome you to another Automotive Best Practice of the Week. Well, we've been training 3 new hire salespeople for a Ford dealership all week long. So we're actually live on location. Now, we just got done sitting with the 3 salespeople, and we had each one of them review the 10 different word tracks that we've asked them to start learning to memorize over the last week or so. So we wanted to see how their progress was. Now, speaking of memorizing word tracks, I'll go ahead and leave you a link above from a video that we recently did called Never Get Stumped Again by a Sales Objection, How to Memorize Word Tracks in the Automotive Business. We'll leave you a copy of that so you know the 5-step easy process to be able to learn word tracks. However, what I thought I would do today was do all 10 of those word tracks that we're trying to get the new salespeople to learn. That way they've got an example of how someone does it with the proper tone and voice and fluctuation. And then their managers also know exactly what we're training these new hire salespeople on. Now, if this is your first time here and you want to improve your sales skills, learn to use psychology to close more car deals, and receive unbiased dealership product and service vendor reviews, go ahead and make sure you subscribe, and then go ahead and make sure you hit the bell so you never miss out on learning anything new. Okay, let's go to work learning those word tracks. Now, the first word track that we teach the new hire salespeople is the greeting, and I'll just perform it for you. Hey, welcome to ABC Motors. My name's Chris, and you are? Hey, great, I'm glad you're here. What can I get you information on today? Most of the time, people are looking for information, so we're just trying to get it out there and get them to let us know what type of information we can provide them. Now, sometimes whenever you have a guest that comes on the lot, they'll give you a reflex objection if I don't have enough time to take a demo drive. And that can stump a new car salesperson, and they'll go ahead and maybe get the guest's information and then start calling for an appointment. And as we've learned in some other videos, that the be-back rate is a 67% close rate. However, it's difficult to get the be-back in. That's only about a 33% chance to be able to get a be-back to come back to the dealership with a good follow-up system. So we want to do everything we can while they're here. So we're going to go ahead and use this word track. Folks, you know what? I get you're short on time. Great. You know what? We'll just take the short route. Hop in. It only takes a few minutes. And so you're just going to have a short route. You just won't go on an extended demo drive. You'll just take them as far as they can in the process. Many times it's just a reflex objection to just kind of hedge their bets in case they don't like the salesperson they're with, the dealership, or the vibe they're feeling. Now, the other objection you'll get to take in a demo drive is, hey, you know what? We just drove one down the street. We don't need to take another demo drive. And that can go ahead and stump even a veteran salesperson. So you just handle it like this. Hey, folks, you know what? If you've already driven that car and you didn't buy it, that concerns me. You know that salesperson you talked to? He must not have told you everything about the car. You know, let me show you a couple things he must not have told you about. Some things I think you're really going to love. Come on, hop in. It only takes a few minutes. The next is I want to think about it. So when they're on the lot and they want to think about it, many times they will have driven a car, and then they get out of the car, and for whatever reason, they're just nervous. Things are going maybe too well, too fast, or maybe they're not going well at all. But either way, they say, you know what? Here's the keys. Appreciate your time. We're just going to go home and think about it. Well, I mean, what really are they going to think about? They don't have any math. They don't know what their trade's going to be evaluated at. They don't know where we're going to end up on the final figures, where the payments will end up, all those sort of things. So what we want to do is just say this to them. Hey, folks, you know what? Of course you need to think about it. I haven't given you enough information not to go home and think about it. What I'd like to do is just give you a quick proposal, 10, 15, 20 minutes. What we'll do is we'll look at all the figures. That way, when you go home tonight, you've actually got all the information you need to make a good informed decision. Fair enough? Do you want a pop water or coffee while we go ahead and get that paperwork started? And then you'd proceed. Now, another thing that you're going to get whenever the guest is on the lot with you early on as a veteran salesperson or as a new salesperson, and that is you're going to get what I call lot objections. And so I learned from Joe Verdi something called bypassing. So bypassing is just simply kind of like a bypass on the highway. Let's say, for instance, that you were driving on the highway, I-80, and there was a big wreck. And you wanted to get around that wreck. So what you might do is just take a bypass exit. You just take that exit and you would bypass all the traffic. And then you would jump back on 80 once you got past all that wrecked traffic or the traffic from the accident. So it's no different in the automotive business. Somebody brings up price and it's obviously something that you're going to address. In fact, you're going to want to address it at the appropriate time, but you'd like to build a little value first. So what you're going to do is you're just going to bypass the price objection, a trade objection. And again, let's just not even call them objections. They're just really questions. How much is it? What type of rates can you guys get? What are the payments going to run on this? And then what do you think my trade's worth? And again, we haven't even selected or driven a car yet, so there's been no value built. So we prefer not to talk about money until we've built value. So if the guest, we get on the lot, we haven't even driven a car yet, and they're bouncing around looking at different vehicles and look over at this truck sitting there that's used, they look at me and say, hey, Chris, what do you think the best price is they could do on something like this? I just say, gosh, you know what? I don't know. You know what? I have a hard enough time keeping up with the new vehicle product knowledge, all the coming and going of the used vehicles, and the new trades we take in, let alone what they'll take for each one. But you know what? We can ask my manager when he gets freed up. Hey, speaking of price, that reminds me, are you going to go with a fully loaded one, or you just want one that's got kind of like mid-level equipment? And then you'd move on. Now, if they did it for the trade, you would say something like, hey, you know what? Gosh, I don't know. You know what? I went to a training class recently, and they said there was over 3,000 make, model, and option combinations, and that's just in the last couple of years. So I appreciate your confidence in me, but I just can't keep up with it all. But you know what? We'll check with my used car manager when he's free. Hey, speaking of your trade, are you going to go with a regular cab this time? Or are you thinking maybe you're going to upgrade to an extended or perhaps even a crew cab? And then we would just move on, show our vehicle, and we'd address that later. So the other lot objection that can come up is payments. So you're bouncing around looking at some vehicles, you're maybe doing a presentation on the vehicle, and then the guest just hits you with, hey, what do you think payments are going to run on this one? And you go, you know what? There's so many factors involved, I just don't know. But if you're looking for a low one, good news. I've got 2 experienced business managers. They've got connections with over 20 different local and national lenders. So I'm confident they'll be able to find a way to fit whatever vehicle we pick out into your budget. Hey, speaking of budget, a lot of that's going to depend on the equipment that you go ahead and get in the vehicle. Now, were you thinking you're going to go with leather in this one, or can you just go ahead and use the cloth? Is that going to be sufficient? And then you'd move on. Now, lastly is rate. So this particular dealership that I'm working with has a big sign on the big banner as you walk into the dealership or drive into the dealership that says 0% for 84 months. So let's say, for instance, the guest says, hey, can you get 0% for 84 months on one of these used cars? Well, you can't, but rather than just, say you can't, you'd say, no, that's just on the new vehicles. So then they may say, the next question would probably be out of their mouth is, hey, what kind of rates can you get me? And you say, gosh, you know what? I don't know. The rates change constantly, so they're really hard to keep up with. But the good news is I've got 2 experienced business managers, and they deal with 20 different local and national lenders. So if you're looking for a low rate, I know they can get you one. By the way, you know what? I almost forgot to ask, who's going to be the main driver of the vehicle? Is it going to be you, Joe, or is it going to be you, Jane? And then we just kind of get out of there. So it's, again, no different than we're on the highway, we see a wreck. We want to avoid that wreck, so we go around the wreck. We're going to get back on the highway. We're not going to withhold any of this information. It's just we're going to go ahead and we're going to discuss this information at the proper time after some value is built. Now, the final word track that we like to teach new hire salespeople is just one to kind of get them to the point where they can negotiate a little bit. And I learned it from a colleague, and they call him, he's got a series of these types of closes he uses, he calls little numbers. And this particular one's called the advanced ad credit. And so this one goes like this. They're asking for some money off. Let's say they ask you for another $1,000 off, and they're just asking for an arbitrary amount of money off, just negotiating to negotiate. And so then you would just say to him, Bill, it sounds like you want to get an additional discount. And as I explained earlier, the vehicle actually has been pre-discounted. However, all that aside, here's an idea. In our sales meeting last week, my manager said that on average, we spend $212 in advertising just to get a guest into the showroom. Now, rather than us have to spend that kind of money to get another guest to sit in your seat to look at the car that you're looking at, what if I was able to get my manager to advance you that $212 in advertising credit today? If I could get them to give you an additional $212 discount, do you see any other reason why you wouldn't go ahead and take the vehicle home today? And then again, you'd proceed. You may negotiate back and forth a little bit. However, again, now you're talking about something that is different from the vehicle. I mean, you've hopefully just justified that your trade value that you give the customer was fair and that the selling price of your vehicle was fair. But then now he's asking or she's asking for an additional discount. And if you just go ahead and give them an additional discount, it really appears as if what you had just said prior to that about that value is really kind of, it loses its credibility because you just said that's the very best price and then you turn around and you give it a discount. Well, with the little numbers, with the advertising credit, there's a referral credit, there's a service credit, there's a survey credit. When you use these little numbers, it makes a lot more sense. And it's just a much better way to get customer satisfaction after you've done the negotiation. Well, there you have it. 10 word tracks that'll help you get the guest off the lot and into the showroom. We give you some word tracks that'll help you in bypassing. That way you can talk about value before you start talking about price. We give you a couple word tracks on I want to think about it. That way, again, you can move forward with the sale. And then lastly, we gave you the greeting, and we also gave you a word track on how to be able to overcome I don't want to take a demo drive because I ran out of time and because I just drove one down the street. And then finally, we gave you the advanced advertising credit, the little numbers. So we gave you a way to negotiate, or a negotiation type of close. Now, if you want to learn some more closes, some more word tracks, go ahead and check out the video that's going to be coming up right about now.